What's up guys, welcome back to my channel Anime Fiction. I'm back with a new episode of What If Naruto Was Teleported to Another World part 26, and if you did enjoy this video, give this video a like, and if you're new to my channel and like my content, subscribe and hit the notification bell for more crossover fictions. Now let's begin this new video.
Chapter 30. War Drums. Naruto couldn't understand it, yet returning to this location after a difficult task or a long journey comforted him. The way the sun shone down on the town, warming it but not overheating it. The fresh aroma of aquifer water, delicacies and items from the streets, and the sounds of people going about their business were all quite pleasant. He was in love with this town. He was going to take a break now that he was back from his job. Take some time to relax. Keep an eye on the guild. Consume some of Myra's food. Consult with his friends. Have fun with Koyuki. Perhaps he and Urza could go up to her room in Fairy Hills and spend some time alone. He was in a good mood. Of course, he wasn't going to be able to hide what he did on the previous assignment. As proof, he still had bandages all over his body. He'd have to inform Gigi about it. Urza as well. Shit. They were going to be furious at him. People mumbled while avoiding Naruto's gaze when he was deep in meditation. He blinked and came to a halt as he listened to the whispers surrounding him. That's one of the fairy tale mages, right? That's Naruto-san. It's so unfortunate what happened to their guild. Do you think he knows? Their rumors piqued Naruto's interest, and a pit formed in his stomach. He began to accelerate and rushed around the final few curves before arriving in front of his guild. Or what remained of it. Several huge stainless steel pillars were impaled into the structure like a terrible pin cushion. The injustice that had been done to the once ancient but magnificent structure had shattered it and shamed it. Naruto's eyes were wide and frozen before gradually narrowing. Who the hell did this? He shouted, gripping his fist until his knuckles turned white. Hash 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 hunter hash 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 hash. What the hell do you mean we're not going to do about this? When Natsu's thunderous voice echoed over the first basement floor, everyone flinched. Although they weren't as vocal as the Dragon Slayer, they completely agreed with him. They knew who had disgraced their guild and now have the opportunity to make them pay. Okay Natsu. First, you need to lower the damn volume, Makarov said, digging his finger into his ear. You're practically ripping into our eardrums because the basement has incredibly strong acoustics. Screw the volume. They wrecked our guild. Natsu shouted fiercely, pointing up the stairs they had just ascended. We all know who did this, right? Let's kick their $1. All around them, there were whispers and grunts of agreement. I know we're not trying to instigate inner guild fighting, master, but we can't let something like this go so easily, Urza said to an irate Koyuki before gazing at their master with conflict in her eyes. That's exactly right. They ruined our house. Those cretins. Gray sat at one of the basement tables, scowling. Those stupid phantom assholes have always been bashing heads. If they're going to fight, I suggest we kick their $1 and make them pay. The members agreed with a thundering yell, as they prepared for fight at any moment. Hey! Makarov grabbed their attention with his hands. We're not going to fight these guys just because of something like this. He touched his knees. The Magic Council forbids within-guild conflict, and fighting would result in the disbandment of both guilds. I'm not going to take that chance for some petty vandalism. Petty. Master, they nearly leveled the whole guild hall, Elfman complained. Ah. This baby's been cracked and broken for dozens of years. Get some planks and some concrete, along with some elbow grease, and she'll be as good as new. Master, it's final. You are not to engage the Phantom Lord Guild in any fighting, Makarov said sternly, staring at the members of his guild. Does that make sense? The guild members all groaned as they stared at each other. Is that clear? Yes, sir. They all nodded, some still expressing their dissatisfaction at letting this deed unpunished but yet obeying their master's request. The noises of cracking timber and stomping feet suddenly resonated over their heads. As it moved closer to the basement entrance, it became increasingly noisy. All of the mages braced themselves for the worst and prepared for war. Naruto dashed down the stairs, screaming, "What the hell happened to our guild? Did you idiots organize a monster party or something?" When they learned it was just Naruto, they all breathed a sigh of relief and relaxed. Urza approached him, relieved that he was still alive, and said, "Naruto. Thank God you're okay. We have no idea what had happened to you." "Oni-chan!" exclaimed Koyuki, tightly hugging her older brother. Naruto was taken aback by their worried demeanor and sought to reassure them. "Why yeah, don't worry, I'm fine. But what became of the guild? Why are there metal spikes protruding from it?" "It was the Phantom. They attacked in the middle of the night when no one was around," Mikao said from a different table. Naruto clenched his teeth. Their two guilds had always had a rivalry, but they never exploited it because it was unlawful for guilds to combat one another. Despite this, the bastards were demolishing their guild hall. "What are we going to do about this?" said Naruto, taking a big breath. "Nothing." Makarov immediately retorted. Naruto appeared to be about to say something, but the small man interrupted him, saying, "We aren't fighting a war. It's merely a building that we can repair. It's not worth the work to paint a target on our backs for the council to shoot at. If you have any more complaints, stuff them down your throats and keep them there." Makarov quickly put an end to the whiskered man's and the rest of the guild's disagreements. Naruto sighed and sat in a chair, saying, "This is bullshit." Natsu sighed, "Totally. As I already stated, keep your complaints to yourself. Now for something very different. Where the hell were you when we were calling you several days ago?" shouted Makarov, firmly pointing at Naruto. The majority of the guild gazed at the bandaged blonde, who sat up in response to all the attention. "What?" he asked, tilting his head. "We attempted to contact you in order to have you go on a rescue mission. But every time we contacted you, we couldn't reach you," Mira replied from beside Makarov. Naruto blinked. "You guys didn't contact me." "Yes, we did." "No, you didn't." "Yes, we did. Hey guys, if you tried to contact me." Naruto extended his hand, and his communication lacrima emitted from his requip. "Then I'd get a message saying, 'Holy shit, you did it. 13 times in total.'" "Huh." Naruto looked up shyly before chuckling and rubbing his chin and saying, "My bad." Some of them simply shook their heads and grumbled at the blonde's folly. "Idiot." Naruto laughed briefly before turning to face the master. "But what happened? Why did you feel the need to contact me?" "We needed you to take on a capture and return job for the guild," Makarov said, crossing his arms. "One among the most important." "What was it?" sat Naruto. Loke motioned to the people seated next to Naruto, saying, "Natsu, Lucy, Happy, and Gray all took an S-class request from the board and ran off." Naruto's eyes blinked. When he turned around, he saw Lucy, Gray, Natsu, and Happy all averting their gaze in shame. Naruto returned his gaze forward and remained silent. The corner of his mouth turned up. "Then there's the other side." Then he began repressing a chuckle so hard that tears welled up in the corners of his eyes.
PFFT, PFFT, P fa ha 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 ha. Ha 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 ha. AHAHAHAHAHAHAHA. Naruto completely lost control and began cackling like a devil. He coughed and covered his painful ribs and lungs, but he couldn't stop laughing. It hurts so much to laugh. But ah ha ha.
"It's not that funny." Natsu slapped his palms on the table. "Oh, why yes, it is." Naruto rose to his feet and yelled back. Finally, he said as he gazed down at his hands, "Years have passed. Years. For years, I've been the only idiot stupid enough to steal an S-class request. And now, 4 fools perform the same thing at the same time. It's like a nightmare come true." He's joking, right?" Lucy shrieked. "Nope," Gray said, shaking his head. "Not even close." Naruto was literally leaping on his feet like a child, exclaiming, "Oh! Oh! Please tell me that the punishment has not yet occurred. Please tell me I'll be able to view it. Oh, I really need to acquire a camera. I'm not going to blow this opportunity." Everyone really pushed back a little to make place for the blonde's surprisingly eager mood. "We aren't punishing them yet," Makarov said, shaking his head. Naruto's soul literally cracked as a result of his disappointment. We need to settle this little dispute with Phantom first, Makarov said as he drank from his mug. That takes precedence over the penalty. If I still feel like it later, we'll do it, but for now, we need to focus on the task at hand. Naruto blinked briefly before pointing at Natsu and the others and said, I'll give them the punishment. Please. Allow me to have this. Makarov simply sliced his skull and said, nope. Naruto became immobile after being denied his dream. Mira approached him and caressed his head, saying, there. Mira looked over to Naruto, who was slumped, and spotted the bandages covering his body. Naruto. Why are you hurt? Mira inquired. Did anything happen? Oh, Naruto stood up again, ridged. Yeah. What exactly could you have been doing to get so beat up? Makarov stood up. And why in the world didn't you show up when we called? Naruto blinked and looked about at how scared and preoccupied everyone else was with the problem at hand. He noticed Urza and the others looking at him for an answer before scratching his chin and said, actually Gigi. Can I talk to you upstairs? Alone. Makarov raised an eyebrow before shrugging and leaping off the counter, saying, whatever kid, your call. Makarov began jumping up the stairs, and Naruto quickly followed. He felt someone grip his arm and turned to see Urza looking at him, concerned. Naruto. What happened? What do you have to say to Master? I'll tell you later, I promise, Naruto said as he kissed her on the forehead. But I think Gigi should hear this first. He removed Urza's hand off his arm and climbed the stairs out of sight. What do you think he wants to tell Ji-san? Gray jerked his head over as the others watched Naruto leave. Do you think he's okay? Lucy asked hesitantly. He's just fine. With an angry glare, Natsu dismissed their concern, saying, Naruto's a tough bastard, so don't worry about him. We should try to persuade Ji-chan to help us fight those phantom jerks. No Natsu, Mira reprimanded the Dragon Slayer. I know you're upset, as are we all. But Master is just as enraged as the rest of us. Really? Because he didn't look upset. Natsu screamed, pointing upstairs. Absolutely not. He seemed to be unconcerned. Natsu. Urza yelled at the man with pink hair. This isn't about us yelling and shouting to get retribution, she said to him. Master understands that if we act, there will be consequences. We won't be able to walk away from these. Don't be coerced into playing this game with that guild just because it's painful right now. Have faith in Master. Are we on the same page? Natsu growled as he inhaled heavily. Natsu. Natsu closed his eyes and said, yeah, we're clear. As Urza sat at the table, Natsu scowled and walked away. Gray agreed. I still think he's right. We should teach those guys a lesson. I don't like it any better than you, Urza said, but there are serious consequences to fighting with other guilds like this. The reason we have rules against actions like this is so that the terrible battles and fights guilds had together over 100 years ago don't happen again. When guilds fight, nothing but destruction and pain results. No, she's right. I remember reading about the early days when guilds were setting up all over. They were always fighting each other for territory. For sponsorship. To show that they were the strongest to trust in. Lucy agreed. Master wants to make sure we don't go too far and start a war, Mira explained, lowering her head. He's just as concerned about this guild as we are.
Listen, when they turned around, they saw Natsu and Happy standing there, while Listen walked away. As Natsu stroked the back of his head, Happy gazed up at his closest friend, perplexed.
Gray groaned and shook his head. I guess this is the worst part. The fallout.
You did
As Makarov's thunderous voice echoed throughout the structure, the entire basement trembled and rumbled. As his baritone slammed into their ears, everyone covered their ears. They heard a lot of crashing and smashing before everything was quiet again. What in the hell did that idiot do this time? Lucy thought to herself as she went along the bank of the aquifer that ran through their town. Geez, that got serious really fast. Lucy recalled reading about Fairy Tail and Phantom Lord having a fierce rivalry. For years, people had been arguing about which guild was the finest of the best. There was no doubt that Phantom Lord was the larger guild. It has dozens of sub-guilds with hundreds of members spread over the country. It was also the older of the two guilds, having been one of the most well-known for many decades. For a long time, if you were asked which guild you thought was the best in the country, you'd probably say Phantom Lord. Then there was Fairy Tail, a newer guild that caused havoc and mayhem wherever they went. But the guild members were good-natured and virtuous, helping everyone who sought for help, regardless of the danger. Their mages were powerful and kind, and they were the guild that felt the closest to a family. With these advantages, it grew in popularity among rising and aspiring mages. Then came word that the guild's greatest members had defeated Damnation, the independent guild that had terrified people all over the world for decades. People were so afraid of Damnation's name and reputation that they would never dare to confront one of its ruthless members. However, this guild conquered and vanquished those creatures, sending the once horrible guild into a tailspin and forcing the remaining members to flee into hiding. People all throughout the country rejoiced for Fairy Tail and sang their praises. Fairy Tail had risen to the top in an instant, becoming the most well-known guild in Fury. That indicated Phantom Lord was probably annoyed that their reputation was being compared to the accomplishments of the newer guild. Man, and I almost joined Phantom Lord too. When you start off wanting to join a guild, your thoughts instantly go to either Fairy Tail or Phantom Lord. But the way everyone was talking about them, they must not be as great as I thought. Lucy paused for a moment before shrugging her shoulders and smiling. Oh well, I'm in Fairy Tail now anyway. And I can't think of anywhere else I'd rather be than there with Al. Lucy unlocked and opened her flat door, to expose all of her friends. Gray smiled as he jumped on the bed. Wow Naruto, you were right, this thing is super soft. Gray Nichan, that's no fair, I want to sit on the bed too. Pouted Koyuki, waving her arms around. Well, stop whining and get up here, kid, Gray said as he assisted the small girl onto the bed and rubbed her head. Better? Yep. Urza sipped her tea and grinned. Lucy has very good tea tastes, and this is delicious. Yeah, but she needs to buy some more food. There's only enough food in there to feed one person. What was she thinking? Naruto said as he went out of the kitchen with a sandwich. Lucy's not very smart, Happy said as he scratched his claws across the new carpet. She can never plan ahead for anything, which is why we're so worried about her. Natsu was just lying down on the floor, scowling. Lucy stood at the doorway, her eyes as large as plates, and they all glanced up. Hiya Lucy, said Happy. Gray nodded and said, Yo. You're home, exclaimed Koyuki. We are very grateful for your hospitality, Urza said, bowing her head. Naruto waved and ate his sandwich, saying, You need to buy more ham. Why are you all in my house? Lucy screamed angrily, pointing at all the intruders. The master wants to make sure we don't attack ourselves, so he ordered us to stick together. We're a fairly close group, so we decided to stick together until this is all over, Urza replied. But why are you in my house? Lucy questioned. We wanted to protect you because you're the newest member, so we snuck in through the window to prepare for everything. Lucy massaged her nose. You know, some people call that breaking and entering. We call it camaraderie, Urza said with a glint in her eye. Lucy opened her mouth to say something, but she noticed out of the corner of her eye that everyone was just shaking their heads. She quickly closed her mouth and reluctantly consented to let them stay with her. Lucy was drying her hair as she went out of the bathroom after taking a shower. So, is this the first time Phantom has ever attacked us, or is this a recurring thing? She asked, with a contented sigh. Urza sat on the edge of her bed, while Naruto sat closer in, Koyuki on his lap, drying her chestnut hair. We've butted heads before, but nothing on this scale, the redhead said, shaking her head. Yeah, it's usually just between which of us deserves to take a job, Naruto moaned. Natsu spit out, or how they're a guild that can get anything done better. Gray went on, or how they've got seniority over us. Gray rose up in her chair and shook the papers in his palm. Hey, are you writing a story with Levi or something? Ow. What the hell? Lucy seized the papers from him and pushed him out of her seat. Don't read this. It's private, she said as she opened a drawer and stuffed the papers inside before closing it. When she turned around, everyone was looking at her with suspicion. Yeah, so, Phantom. Can we do something about them? She blushed. We shouldn't, Urza said, crossing her legs and shaking her head. We can argue all we want, but the truth is our guilds are rivals, and we're evenly matched in power. Natsu sneered, they wish. No matter what you say, Natsu, it's the truth. Urza narrowed her brows. If we have quality in our members, Phantom definitely has quantity. Their master holds the same rank as ours, one of the 10 wizard saints. Lucis' eyes widened as she exclaimed, Wizard saints? Yep, Naruto agreed. The top tier of mages in Fury chosen by the Magic Council, of which Gigi is one, just like Master Jose of Phantom. Urza's brows narrowed as she said, and Seagrain of the Magic Council. Plus Phantom's got its own best mages to worry about, Gray explained as he sat up on the floor. The Elemental Four. 4 strong wizards who are basically the S-class of their guilds. Whoa, Lucy exclaimed hesitantly, that sounds bad. Yeah. But that's not the worst part. Happy sprang in front of her and began waving his paws. Besides the Elemental Four, they also have a super powerful mage as their ace. A dragon slayer. What? Lucy exclaimed, before scowling at the pink-haired mage laying on the floor. Black Steel, Gajeel Red Fox. The Iron Dragon Slayer, Natsu said, staring at the ceiling. This knowledge utterly overwhelmed Lucy. She slumped back in her chair, surprised, and asked, there are other dragon slayers? Of course, Urza replied. Even if it is a rare form of magic, there is always the possibility of others practicing the same magic, though, Black Steel, is the only other dragon slayer we are aware of. Really? Naruto asked, raising an eyebrow and tilting his head, because I've met like 2 others besides Natsu. Everyone else in the room was taken aback by the whiskered blonde. What? Said Nastu, sitting up again. Yeah, Naruto said, nodding, I've met 2 more dragon slayers. They were just kids but they definitely used the same kind of magic. Do they know where Igneel went? Can I ask them? Natsu leapt over the table and grasped Naruto's shoulders, startling Koyuki as she clambered over to Urza's side. Natsu. Calm down. I tried asking them that already, Naruto said as he grasped his friend's hands. And? Natsu said, hoping. Naruto shook his head and apologized to his friend. Natsu let go of Naruto and said, damn it. Happy flew over to Natsu's side and patted his companion on the head, saying, it's okay, Natsu. We'll find him one day. You met more people like Charcoal Brain? Gray asked Naruto, that's crazy. Would you like to know what the craziest part was? Naruto stared at everyone, they both had cats. Everyone in the room just blinked silently before turning to gaze at Happy. Like, normal cats or, Lucy inquired. Like happy cats. Naruto said. Talking. Walking. Annoying as hell. Both of them. One of them could fly. That. Definitely sounds like Happy. That's amazing. Happy. Natsu said, looking at the cat. Why didn't you tell me about this? I had absolutely no idea. Gray groaned. The world is bigger and stupider than we can ever imagine. Ah. This day sucks more and more. Our guild gets attacked. Lee-san is mad at me. And Lucy doesn't have enough food. Grumbled Natsu. I wasn't buying for a group. My head hurts, Natsu said as he sat back down. Urza and Naruto exchanged glances. Natsu, have you said anything to Lasana yet? Naruto asked, looking down at the agitated mage. Natsu looked at him, puzzled. What? I mean, have you gotten a chance to talk to her since you got back? No, Natsu said, crossing his arms. I tried talking to her earlier, but she just walked off all pissed and mad, don't know why. Naruto nodded as Urza gave him a knowing glance. Natsu, he said to his pal, you should apologize to Lasana. What? Why? Blinked Natsu. Because she was worried about you running away like an idiot and accepting that request, which is what happens when you do something risky. But I came back alive. I'm fine. Why is she worried? Natsu said after a little pause. Natsu. Urza said calmly to her old friend, how she feels right now. Is the same as you felt when she went with Mira and Elfman on that S-class job. Natsu's eyes widened with surprise as he looked down in embarrassment. Natsu. Said Happy as he flew over his head. Yeah. Okay. He said as he turned back and beckoned for Happy to follow. Come on buddy. Let's go see Lasana before she gets even angrier at us. Aye sir. Happy exclaimed, smiling as he trailed the Dragon Slayer. They stormed out the door, leaving the others in Lucis' house. Gray shook his head and said, 1,000 joules, he screws things up even more. He felt a light jab in the shoulder from Lucy as she scowled at him and shook her head. How did you guys know that was why Isana was mad at him? Lucy asked the couple seated on her bed. Urza turned to face Naruto, who shrank back slightly. He averted his sight from theirs, saying, I kinda had to deal with the same thing when I stole an S-class request a few years back. You did what? Lucy's eyes widened. Oh man, that was funny. You got yelled at for days, and your punishment. Man, I thought I peed my pants when you came back. Keep laughing, asshole. You guys are gonna have to do it soon enough, Naruto grinned. Gray's fun and smile had vanished as terror engulfed his face. Seriously, what's going to happen? Can someone please tell me already? Lucy was worried as she saw the Maker Mage lose his joyful grin. There's no fun in that. While Lucy shivered in fear and Gray's expression remained depressed, Naruto and Koyuki simply chuckled at their predicament, the tiny Senju simply following the example her elder brother was establishing for her. Naruto? Urza asked her partner as they chuckled. Yeah, Urza? Naruto said, wiping away a tear. What did you tell Master earlier that made him so angry? It was Naruto's turn to lose his smile this time, but unlike Gray, his smile dropped in a straight line. Gray and Lucy were jolted out of their stupors when they gazed at the whiskered blonde, wondering what he had said before that had elicited Makarov's cry. I wanted to tell you in a more private situation, but I should be telling this to the others too, Naruto sighed, running his hand through his hair, but I should be telling this to the others too. He looked between all of them. I did something while I was working on my last request. Something bad. They gave the S-class mage their whole attention as Urza attempted to assist him. Naruto, you can tell us anything. We won't be mad at you. Naruto shook his head and stared his girlfriend in the eyes, saying, actually, Urza, you will. Lasana emerged from the restroom, her towel wrapped around her torso. She sighed contentedly as she walked back to her room. Lasana. Elfman yelled from the top of the stairs, Nei-chan is almost done making dinner. It will be ready in 5 minutes. Got it. I'll be down in a sec. Lasana closed the door behind her before removing the towel from her sternum. She stroked it through her frizzy white hair and murmured gently at the feeling of newness that engulfed her. After all of the frantic stress at the guild, she needed this moment of peace to herself. Tap asterisk tap asterisk tap. Lasana, are you in there? Lasana froze, gently turning her head towards her window. Natsu was floating outside, with Happy on his back. Come on Lasana, open the window. You're in there, right? He said, tapping the window. Perhaps she's eating dinner with Mira and Elfman, Happy said. Alright, let's start knocking. Natsu smirked and ignited his fist. Thank goodness for the tinted and one-way window. What are you doing, you jerks? The window opened briefly, and a towel flew out to cover Natsu and Happy's faces. They whirled around before seizing the handkerchief and tossing it aside. Lasana, said the Dragon Slayer as he washed his face and opened the Aegir window. What are you doing here, Natsu? Lasana jumped out from behind her bed, a pink grin on her lips, straightening the ends of a sky-blue blouse she had hurriedly thrown over herself. I was terrified seeing you floating outside my window like a ghost, she said as she walked out. Sorry Lasana. We didn't want to freak out Mirajan or Eiffelman because we thought they'd be on edge after the guild stuff, Happy said as she glided up to her. So you thought it'd be better to scare me? Lasana asks, her face flushed. Well, Mira would probably scream at us, and Elfman would charge at us for sneaking up on them like that. Well, you're not wrong, Lasana said tiredly, looking off to the side. Hey Lasana, the Strauss siblings said as he looked across at Natsu over their discussion. You're mad at us, right? Lasana blinked in astonishment before hesitantly nodding. Why yeah. Happy raised his paw and said, Urza and Naruto told us. You know, if you were angry at us, you should have told us. We never would have figured it out unless they told us, Natsu frowned. Lasana sighed, I think the point of being angry at someone is that they figure it out for themselves. How were we supposed to figure that out? Natsu questioned, a tick over his eye. Just think about the stupid stuff you did recently that'd make a person mad, exclaimed Lasana. I can't count that high, stupid, exclaimed Natsu. That's your own fault, jerk, exclaimed Lasana. Happy shook his head and shrugged his small shoulders, saying, "It's like watching little kids bicker." "Shut up. Happy, X2. As someone charged towards the door, the sound of footsteps ran through the floor. It shattered open to reveal Elfman with a smear of oil on his face and a pink apron on. "Lasana, are you okay? I thought I heard something," he exclaimed nervously. Lasana stood in the middle of her room, a worried smile on her face. "Nope, no one here, Elf Nichin. You must have just been imagining it," she said, shaking her head. Elfman entered her room and quickly scanned it for anything out of the ordinary. "Lasana, are you sure you're all right?" he asked his little sister, who was trying to blend in with a huge smile. "Never better," she exclaimed as she whirled her brother around and pushed him out the door. "Now get out of here, Mirane needs your help." All right. All right. Stop pushing, I'm going." Elfman exited, leaving his sister in her room. Lasana exhaled a breath of relief before bending and removing the blanket from the foot of her bed. "He's gone, you can come out," she said quietly. Happy sprang out fast and moaningly rolled on the floor. Natsu's hands rushed out, attempting to pull him out of the confined confines. "Why did we have to hide in the tiny space?" he yelped, finally pulling himself out with stretch marks on his face. "Sorry," Lasana said, clapping her hands together and bowing. "Elf Nichin would have been furious if he saw you here. I panicked." Happy stroked his sore ears and said, "I think I rubbed down my brain." Lasana patted his head and said, "Sorry, Happy. I'm sorry." Natsu sat up, crossed his legs, and rubbed his head. He looked up to see Lasana gently rubbing Happy's head while apologizing to the cat. He groaned and said, "Lasana. I'm sorry. I'm sorry we ran off to take the S-class without telling anyone. I know it's dangerous, but I wanted to do it. Just to see if I could," the Strauss girl said as he looked to the side. Lasana gazed at her pal as he confessed his error. She looked down to see Happy gaze up at her with sad eyes and nod in agreement to what his friend had just said. "I know you're strong, Natsu, but you remember how dangerous those missions can get even when you're prepared. We were all worried for you guys, and we didn't know why you left. Why did you go?" Lasana said, looking down at her knees. "I wasn't there when Hashirama Jichin was killed by those damnation guys. I wasn't there when Urza and the others went to fight them off. Mahiro left to fight all those assholes around the world. Gildart still hasn't returned from that job he went on. I'm sick of feeling like a damn useless brat after all these years. I'm sick of it. I know it's dangerous to do stuff like this, but it's way more painful to just sit around and let this shit happen. I wanted to prove that I could beat something stronger than me and protect what I care about. I'd rather put myself in danger than sit around and let everyone else get hurt while I sit on my ass like a moron." Natsu glared down at his own hand. Happy looked up at his best friend, concerned, and said, "Natsu. Natsu. You're strong. And you'll only get stronger if you keep trying," Lasana said as she reached out and grabbed his hand. "But you need to take the time to gain that strength, so please don't jump at the chance to risk your life like that." "Do you think?" Natsu inquired nervously. "Of course," she said, "but you shouldn't do anything stupid to do it." Happy walked up and hopped into Lisana's lap, saying, "That doesn't sound like Natsu at all." Natsu chuckled before agreeing and saying, "Okay, I'll try, Lasana." Lasana smiled and hugged her pal passionately. Natsu paused for a time before following suit. "Lasana." The door flew open to see Mira and Elfman standing outside. "Elfman thought you might not be feeling well. Are you?" They all blinked in surprise as a dead quiet descended on them. "Natsu, you bastard," charged Elfman. As shouts and explosions filled the halls, the entire house began to tremble. Levi strolled down the street silently stirring up dust, Jet and Dwa arguing behind her. Her thoughts returned to how her guild, her home, was on the verge of being reduced to rubble and nails. "Hey there, Levi." As Jet's cry reached her ears, the blue-haired girl was startled out of her thoughts. "What?" she asked. "I'm sorry, I wasn't listening. I said, what do you think is gonna happen after the crap Phantom pulled doing this? They gotta pay for doing this in the first place, right? They should be punished. Suspended or something," screamed the hat-wearing member of Shadowgear. "They won't suspend Phantom. They're one of the oldest guilds in Fury. They're going to avoid causing a major stir and try to handle this matter quietly," Dwa said, shaking his head. They'll probably just foot the bill and make them pay for the repairs. That's not good enough, screamed Jet fiercely. They need to pay for what they've done. You know, Jet, it wasn't just your guild. Dwa screamed in his friend's face. Try to think about the rest of the guild before you start shooting off your mouth like that. Guys. Levy shoved them away and stepped between them. We can't argue with each other. That's not going to help us in any way, so stop, she said, looking up at her friends. Jet and Dwa took a step back, looking down at their master and back at each other. The guild hall was our home. I'm not all right with this either. None of us are. But we have to grit our teeth and bear with it for the guild's sake. A small tear ran down her cheek as she whimpered, we have to stick together. Because we're all we have in the end. We're family. The guys of Shadow Gear exchanged glances as Levy wiped her eyes with a brief sob. Levy. They tried to console her. You're right. We shouldn't be fighting. Not right now. Because we're Shadow Gear. The best team in Fairy Tail, and we stick together through and through. Levy looked up at her colleagues, who smiled and nodded firmly. Right, Levy said, sniffing slightly and smiling with slightly puffy eyes. We can handle anything, Jet said, clutching his fist. Yeah. Nothing's gonna bring us down, Dwa responded, a wide grin on his face. We're Shadow Gear, Levy said as she glanced at both of them and nodded happily. 2 metal poles sprang down from her shoulders and smacked the 2 men in the chest. It embedded them in the concrete and pushed them through the rock many meters. Levy stared in alarm as her unkempt hair blew in the unexpected gust of wind. Jet and Dwa gasped in pain as the metal poles drew back and away from them. Levy whirled around and peered up at the source of the onslaught. A man with wild long hair stood on top of a structure in the moonlight. The metal piercings on his body mirrored the moonlight behind him. His red eyes penetrated the darkness, and his pointed white fangs widened in a psychotic grin aimed at her. As she shivered in panic, Levy nearly choked on her breath. And the creature leapt down towards her, laughing hysterically. Smack! Lucy and Gray flinched as Urza's fist came crashing down and clapped Naruto in the face. Koyuki was terrified as Urza stared at him with a searing and uncontrollable rage in her eyes. The slap did not surprise Naruto. In fact, he was expecting something similar to occur. This was to be expected when you admitted to fighting against one of Fiore's most infamous dark guilds on your own. What were you thinking, you idiot? No, what were you thinking when you decided to attack a dark guild alone like an insufferable moron? She gritted her teeth. Naruto remained calmly staring in the same direction and nodded, yeah. What was it? Urza shouted. Tell me what you were thinking while you went and nearly killed yourself. Wow. Grimoire heart. Lucy clutched her chest as a chilly pit formed in her gut. I mean, I know they're bad. But I can't really imagine fighting them. She shook her head, that's terrifying. Gray fell back on the ground, taken aback by Naruto's story. He knew the whiskered guy was strong and always willing to help. But he battled off some of the most powerful members of a famed dark guild on his own. It's difficult to believe something like that could be true. I had to think about what was best for the town, Naruto said flatly, as if reciting a statement he had previously thought of. If I hadn't done something as soon as possible, they would have had to pay for it with their lives, and I had to. That's not what I'm talking about, Urza yelled, causing him to look up in surprise. I'm not talking about why you decided to fight them. I'm talking about why you decided to fight them alone. Why you couldn't even contact me before you decided to fight them. I want to know why. She shook her head and stared at him. Gray and Lucy blinked before patiently glancing at Naruto. Koyuki gazed up to her big brother, his hair covering his eyes and his hands clutched together. She observed him grinding his teeth. Because I hate them, Urza. Naruto glanced down at the ground as emotion returned to his voice, propelled by his wrath and disdain for the Dark Guild. I hate what they do. I hate how they destroy homes and kill people indiscriminately for their reasons. I hate that I had a chance to stop them years ago, but I was so damn powerless that I felt like a fucking child swiping at air. And I didn't call any of you to help. Because I didn't want to get you hurt while facing them. They're planning something big. Something terrible. And if I get the chance to stop them, I won't hesitate. This is something I need to make up for. No matter what, Naruto said as he separated his hands and laid them on his knees. Lucy stared at Naruto, completely taken aback by his words and the weight they contained. He always handled himself as a funny, happy-go-lucky guy who believed in himself and everyone in the guild every time she saw him. And now he was sitting there, talking about hatred and his desire to face a powerful danger regardless of the consequences. Gray bowed his head and gazed at his companion, realizing the enormous impact hatred had on a person. Urza fully comprehended what he was saying, because she knew him better than anyone else. Naruto once told her what he was most passionate about in life. Her Koyuki, the guild and its members. He loved and appreciated these things, and he never wanted to lose them. And then there were the things he despised. Guilds of the dark. Damnation. People who do harm to others for selfish purposes or for the sake of pleasure. Those who exploited their abilities for personal gain. And others who wished to harm the things he cherished. He swore he'd fend them off and never give up as long as he was standing. However, there were some exceptions. Certain individuals. Naruto disliked 3 people so severely that just thinking about them made him feel like a different person. Dan's was there. The merciless and cold-hearted ninja who used him as a weapon to eliminate his opponents. He made Naruto's childhood a living misery and left Naruto with the feeling that he might never be able to move on from his past. There was also Alexander Sorrento, founder of Damnation and Tyrant King, who tortured the planet with misery and death for half a century. He had killed numerous individuals, some of whom were family or in some manner related to other fairy tale members. But the most definite loss they had shared was when this creature killed Hashirama Senju. And Naruto had been so enraged that he flew into a frenzy and killed the man, nearly killing himself in the process. And then there was Hades, one of the Balam Alliance's pillars, the mysterious master of Grimoire Heart.
According to Naruto, he was an old man with great strength and no regard for the individuals he used.
This man had battered Naruto like a dog in his weakest area, and even if Naruto had left an injury on the man, he wasn't content with it. Urza had to admit that she had a great dislike for this man after Naruto told her that he had given the Zeref cult the idea for the R system they were suffering under. But, after losing so terribly to the elderly guy, Naruto's hate was significantly more focused and bubbling over. He won't be pleased until he has exacted his revenge and made the man suffer for his actions. Urza locked her gaze on him for a moment before dropping her eyes so that no one else could see them. I know you want to stop them, Naruto. I know how much that means to you. And I promised that I would always be by your side no matter what, but when you endanger yourself like this, when you become so angry and ready to fall to that hatred. When she glanced up again, her eyes were filled with so much sadness and fear that he didn't know what to say. I'm afraid you might go too far again, she almost murmured. Naruto raised his head silently, shocked by what she said. Urza took a deep breath and walked out the door, saying, I'll be back in a minute. Lucy blinked in surprise as she shut the door. Wait Urza. Wait for me. She fell out of her chair and headed to the door. When Lucy shut the door, only Gray, Naruto, and Koyuki were left alone in the apartment. Gray sighed and, taking care not to aggravate his wounds, rose up and took Lucy's chair for himself. He ran his hand through his hair and turned to face his companion, saying, considering who was yelling at you, I'd say you got off pretty easy. Really? Naruto asked, looking down at the ground. Because I feel like I just got hit with a brick. He felt a little hand lightly smack his cheek. He looked over to see Koyuki pouting at him in an angry manner and slapped him again, stupid. 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 As Koyuki's little fingers stopped smacking his cheek, Naruto let out a dry laugh. Yeah, that about sums it up. Gray noticed Naruto's empty gaze as he looked down at the carpet. Without a doubt, the redhead's remarks were flying around within his thoughts while he sat there. He didn't know what had happened to make Naruto so angry at the Dark Guild, but he did know what he was going through right now. Do you know what happened on the S-class job that we just took? Naruto turned to Gray as his question broke the stillness. Gray leaned on the chair as Naruto shook his head. We went to Galuna Island to try to help the villagers there. They wanted us to destroy the moon. I don't know how the hell they thought we could do that, but they wanted nothing more than to see the moon break up into pieces. But underneath the earth, hidden away from sight, was something terrible. A demon. One from the book of Zeref. Deliora. The monster that was single-handedly responsible for slaughtering my family, killing my master, leaving me orphaned and homeless, and destroying the bond I had with a guy who was basically my brother. Well, not single-handedly, but he definitely got it started.
So there it was, the demon that ruined my life, frozen in ice my master sacrificed to make, and the person trying to free him from that cage was a fellow student and my brother in arms. I was so angry I was seeing red and ready to give my life to make sure that monster never escaped. All because I let my hate consume me. But Natsu stopped me before I went too far.
Gray stared down at his hands, reflecting on what had happened to him in the previous days. If you let your hatred become the only thing you think about, you lose sight of everything around you. The life you have. The people you've bonded with. Everything you've made and built. It will all come crashing down if you give yourself to hatred. And you aren't the only one who suffers if you come crashing down like that, he reflected. Gray completed his argument and looked up to see Naruto looking down, lost in thought. The whiskered mage felt Koyuki crawl up to him and affectionately put her little arms around his neck, showing that one of the people who loved him the most was close by his side when he needed it. He returned the young Senju's embrace before closing his eyes. I know what hate does to a person. But I just can't stop it sometimes. I'm not saying it'll be easy, Gray said, but we can't give in to it. Levi landed on the rock after bouncing off the concrete and gasping in pain. She fought to get to her hands and knees, her vision contracted into a tunnel. Her breathing and heartbeat were the only sounds in her ears right now. Her gaze drifted, and she caught sight of Jet and Dwa, who were unconscious, bruised, and bloodied on the sidewalk. Even after the initial surprise attack, they continued to stand up and battle their opponent. And they lasted as long as they could. She was pleased with them. But this man was brutal. Like a beast. Shit, is this seriously all you fairy wimps can do? Fuck me. Whoever thought you guys were equal to us must have been smoking some serious shit. If this is all to expect, I'm pretty sure I could beat everyone in your guild with my hands tied and blind in one eye. Levi strained to stand, then flinched and clutched her painful ribs. Before she began writing in the air, she took quick and irregular breaths. As she scribbled fire in the air, her solid script activated. The letters instantly transformed into the element and spread out towards her assailant, engulfing him. When the flames went out, he was shown to have gleaming skin and was unblemished by her flame strike. He smirked and put out his arm, a long metal rod extending from his palm and striking her directly in the chest. Levi felt a big wave of agony wash over her till she let out one more gasp of pain and collapsed on the street. Her eyelids blinked a couple more times before closing as she surrendered to slumber.
The stranger emerged from the darkness and stood over his defeated prayer. He had long, spiky black hair and metal piercings all over his face and arms. He wore a black vest with no sleeves to impress his opponents with his powerful and terrified arms. His teeth were unusually sharp, and his eyes were blood red. And on his right shoulder was the Phantom Lord Guild tattoo. He was Black Steel, Gajiel Red Fox, Phantom Lord's Iron Dragon Slayer. Gajiel sighed, then grumbled, "Well, I had my fun." He strolled over to Levi's comatose form, time to send the message.
He slid his foot beneath her tummy and flipped her onto her back. He knelt down and unbuttoned her shirt, revealing her bra and naked stomach. He took out a little container of dark purple body paint from his pocket. He gathered a clump of material between his fingers and began spreading it over the unconscious girl's stomach. After that, he needed to place them somewhere Fairy Tail would notice them and understand the message. Stupid fucking plan. What in the hell was Master Jose thinking when he told me to do this? I can barely draw shit. If he wanted me to leave a message, I could have wrecked the rest of their guild. Gajiel was halfway through designing their symbol when something caught his eye. The air had a weird yet familiar aroma. Something he was quite used to. He smelled the same smell when he entered his room. The aroma of a dragon. Gajiel's eyes opened and he quickly dropped his head to dodge a scorching hook kick aimed at his skull. He stayed on the ground and slid away from his attacker before glancing up. The man standing over the unconscious blue-haired girl had his entire hand engulfed in flames, his eyes peering out of his pink hair and gazing at the Phantom Mage. Gajiel recognized who it was and smirked, "Salamander. I've been waiting a long time to meet you." "Natsu!" yelled a shrill little voice through the night as a blue cat with wings swung around the corner. "Why did you flee?" You just dashed and, Levi, Jet, Dwa, he exclaimed, looking at their slain companions in despair before turning to his pal, Natsu. What happened? Natsu simply ran forward at the black-haired man standing opposite from him, receiving no response. As Natsu swung a kick out at Gajiel's head, he smirked and began to bounce on his feet. Gajiel leaned back and grasped his foot, then spun around and threw him down the street. Natsu clutched the concrete and slid along it just in time to see Gajiel about to smash his head in. He used his arms to parry Gajiel's hefty attack before attempting to sweep his feet. But Gajiel dodged his strike before attempting to knee him in the face, only to be struck with Natsu's palm. They pushed off each other and glared before leaping forward, fists drawn back. Natsu punched Gajiel in the cheek, while the Iron Dragon Slayer punched the fairy mage in the gut. They backed up even more, and Natsu's fist erupted into flames, fire dragons. Iron dragons, Gajiel's hand became encased in metal.
Iron fist, hardy fist. Their fists collided, causing a thunderous explosion as the two strong punches cancelled one another. Nastu shot out one side and bounced off the concrete before moaning and regaining his feet.
The dust began to clear, and Gajiel began sprinting in the opposite direction. I want to keep this going, Salamander, but I was told to leave the moment one of you losers came charging. See ya later. Bastard. Natsu charged after him. Come back here, you. Natsu. Natsu turned around to see Happy, who was nearly crying, standing next to Levi. We have to help them, he sobbed. Natsu grumbled, returning his gaze to Gajiel's fleeing form, before shaking his head and running back to his teammate's side. Levi, wake up. Jet, Dwa, come on, damn it, he said as he slowly lifted her back and shoulders. Natsu. When he looked up, Urza and Lucy were sprinting down the corner, still in their PJs. They came to a halt, Lucy covering her mouth in fear as Urza stared at the spectacle in disbelief. What happened? She asked, her eyes furrowed. We need to get them help first. Natsu directed his gaze to Happy. Happy, go get Lasana. Tell Mira. Tell everyone. All right, exclaimed Happy as he flew away. Lucy knelt by Levi's side and began sobbing. Levi-chan. Oh God, no. Urza stood there in silence, gritting her teeth and clenching her fist. It was early in the morning. Lucy and Mira were with Levi, Jet, and Dwa in the hospital room. Lucy hadn't moved from Levi's side all night, and tears had caused bags to grow beneath her eyes. A teacup was lowered into her line of sight, and she looked up to see Mira, who had a sad expression on her face. You need to drink something, she comforted her. You'll only harm yourself if you don't maintain your strength. Lucy examined the cup before taking it and placing it in her lap. Mira bent forward and wrapped her arms around the young blonde in a comforting hug as her shoulders began to quiver. The girl's attention was drawn to the room when the door creaked open. Makarov stood calmly in the doorway, staring around the room. He entered softly before leaping up on the side of the bed. He gazed down at Levi, then over to Jet and Dwa before returning his gaze to Levi. How are they doing? He inquired.
Mira drew her arms away from Lucy before adjusting her clothes, hardly able to keep her own tears from falling. They were all severely beaten, she exhaled deeply. They'll also be unconscious for a while. According to Natsu, we believe they were ambushed. It could have been far worse, but... Mira paused speaking as her voice began to break and she attempted to calm herself.
Makarov didn't waste any time getting out of bed and walking out of the room. He strolled softly inside the hospital before exiting its doors. Everyone in Fairy Tale was thronging the street outside the hospital where their friends were being treated. They were all just standing there patiently, staring at Makarov as the door closed behind him. I was fine with them destroying our guild, he said, his eyes dropped. It was only a structure. Something we could rebuild and repair. They couldn't actually harm our guild by destroying a structure, no matter how hard they tried. However, they attack our family, he said, his voice becoming enraged. They beat and mock them. Because of what, exactly? They want to go to war. They want to demonstrate that they are still the strongest. Fine. We intended to avoid this conflict, but if they think it's a good idea to provoke us by hurting our buddies, they're in for a surprise. Phantom desires a battle. Let's teach these bastards why fucking with Fairy Tale was the worst decision they could have ever made. Makarov's magic blazed to its maximum point, and he yelled. The guild members erupted in laughter. There were no more ideas of bargaining. There was no pity. If Phantom wants to start a war, they only received one then. To be continued.
That's it for this particular inflation to this video. I hope you did enjoy this for the story, and if you did, like, share, and subscribe for more. And thank you all for helping support, and have a great day.